Great to have you with us on WPR News. Larry Mealer here, talking today about state parks, forest, and recreation areas in northern Wisconsin. This is the second in a series of conversations we're having to celebrate the 125th anniversary year of our Wisconsin State Park system. Couple of guests for you. Back with us once again, Jim Buchholz, retired state park supervisor for the Wisconsin DNR. He's the author of the book, a great book, Wisconsin State Parks, Forests, and Recreation Areas, a Ranger's Guide. Jim, welcome back. Good to have you with us.
Hello, Larry. Yeah, it's great to be back again.
Also with us today, Matthew Densau. Matthew is a DNR property manager for Interstate State Park, Straight Line State Park, or Straight Lake State Park, and Governor Knowles State Forest. Matthew, welcome to you.
Thanks for having me, Larry.
Well, great to have you with us. And as we talk with our two guests, I hope you'll join the conversation. Have you attended our state parks in northern Wisconsin? Maybe you visited Interstate State Park or Straight Lake State Park or Governor Knowles State Forest. I hope you'll join in. Give us a call. The number is 800-642-1234, or you could send an email to talk@wpr.org. Jim, I really am enjoying your book. You've got the book set up by regions as I looked, and you have a map that kind of introduces us to each area. As I looked, this region, Region 3 in the book, basically it goes from all the way from north from Superior, kind of down to Eau Claire, then over to Wausau and back up again, roughly. But it includes a lot of rivers and state forest park land.
Well, yeah, there's I list 23 different properties in the section, and it's basically all the northern state forests, the state parks, and recreation areas. Quite a few of them are classified as scenic water flowage areas. So very interesting area, including the Northern Highlands American Legion State Forest, which of course is our largest state property, way over 220,000 acres. And it goes all the way up to Lake Superior, the Apostle Islands, where they'll find Big Bay State Park on a remote, not remote, but it's a difficult area to get to. You have to get a ferry to get over to Big Bay. And includes a lot of the river properties, the Brule, Flambeau, Peshtigo, Willow, Menominee, and the upper Wisconsin rivers. So really an interesting part of the state. And I know you said you had Matt Denzo on, and he's manager at one of my favorite parks. What I'm asked is one of my favorite parks, Interstate, always comes to mind because I've been there many times and still enjoy going there.
Yeah, it is a beautiful park. Matthew, and you're currently, as Jim was saying, you're currently the property manager for Interstate State Park. And this park has really got an interesting history.
Yeah, definitely. We're the oldest state park in the state. You know, we say we're the oldest. We're not technically the first because there was another state park that was established by the state of Wisconsin before us in about 1878. In the northern part of Wisconsin, they called it the state park. However, nothing really happened with it and eventually was sold off. But thanks to local community involvement from individuals such as Henry Baker from St. Croix Falls, and there was another movement in the Minnesota side, Interstate Park became Wisconsin's first state park in 1900. So we're very excited to be celebrating our 125th anniversary this year, along with the entire Wisconsin State Park system.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful park. It really is. And it includes land in Wisconsin and Minnesota on sides of the St. Croix River. How do the two states collaborate or take care of the property?
There's been lots of ebbs and flows with that throughout the history of Interstate Park. At the beginning, there was a little bit more collaboration because things were coming online a little bit. At one point in time, there was even reciprocity with park stickers between the two states. So Minnesota Park Pass could be honored in Wisconsin. However, A lot of that just with changes in funding, popularity of different parks, what have you, that's all kind of fallen by the wayside. And we really operate as two separate state parks at this point in time.
Yeah. How different is the park from one side of the river to the other?
Well, I mean, the Wisconsin side's the best side. I mean, we're
Yeah.
the bigger, better side. We're 1,300 acres. We have over 82 campsites. We have a wonderful swimming beach. We have multiple CCC buildings. Not to talk us up more, but I mean, the Minnesota side, it's a lot smaller, and that's more of a function of the Highway 8 that runs right by it, and just the train that's there. But like I always say, we're the bigger, better side.
Jim, Interstate State Park is the western end of the Ice Age National Scenic Trail. What does that spot mean for hikers of all portions of the 1,200-mile Ice Age Trail?
Well, yeah, you're right. That's either the beginning or the end of the trail, depending on where you start. If you start in Potawatomi State Park in Door County, you've got a 1,200-mile hike to get to the interstate, or vice versa. But it's definitely a beautiful place to start your trail, and I can't think of a better place to do it than that. I was thinking about interstate. Minnesota beat us, actually. I feel bad about that to this day. By 5 years, they opened up 5 years before we got around to doing it. So we can't say we're the first state park. Minnesota beat us to it, but I agree with Matt. We've got the best part of it.
Yeah, and Matthew, Jim describes in his book the Interstate Ice Age Interpretive Center as one of the finest nature centers in the state. What makes this nature center special?
Well, I mean, we're right at Interstate, and well, it's a fantastic place to start your adventure, either on the Ice Age Trail, just learning about our glacial history. We also have a fantastic classroom where we have naturalist programs that go on pretty much this time of year it's more with partners, which we can't live without in this day and age. Summertime, we do have our naturalists providing programs throughout the year. We also have several guest programs that come in, such as Snakes Are Alive. Lots of great activities that we have going on. There's also just that ability to learn about what we have here at Interstate and across the 9 other units of the Ice Age Scientific Reserve units here in Wisconsin.
Yeah. What does the Interstate State Park have to offer paddlers?
So what we offer is access to really uninhibited of the lower sections of the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway. To the north, you have very nice sections of the St. Croix and Namakagon. However, once you hit St. Croix Falls, then you have a very massive hydroelectric dam. So what we have is what a lot of people experience is they launch off of our boat launch, and there's a nice 7-mile stretch of St. Croix River that they can paddle down and then take out at the Osceola landing, and just experience the nice quiet that we have on this stretch of river, and then also experience the 2 Dalles of the St. Croix. So interstate parks, both the Minnesota and Wisconsin side, protect the upper Dalles. There's also a lower Dalles that's down the river about 2.5 to 3 miles that people can experience and enjoy.
And we're in the middle of winter, obviously. How about the winter for people who cross-country ski or maybe ice fish?
Sure. So this time of year, we do have one trail that we groom for classic cross-country skiing. Our Skyline Trail provides a nice, about 2-mile little loop. Just with our terrain that we have, it makes it very difficult for us to have a more extensive trail system. However, we do have many sections of trail that we still maintain for winter, such as the Quarry Trail and Point Loop, which can really only be winter trails just of the terrain that they go through, a lot of wet soils and things. So there's lots of great opportunities for snowshoeing. The river doesn't freeze over completely. So right now, right at our boat launch, we have a very large gathering of geese and swans that we have in the area. And then wintertime, every single year, we have first day hikes. We have our candlelight night, which happened on the 8th, which we had a great turnout of about 300 some odd people. And that was after having 8 inches of fresh snow that morning. So we did a great job of getting everything cleared out, and we had several, 300 people come out.
That's great. Don in Iron River has something for us. Let's go there. Hi, Don.
Hello. Say, I've got some ideas. There's a book that I have, Waterfalls of Wisconsin. Most of them are in northern Wisconsin. And the Department of Natural Resources magazine is a great idea for discovering Wisconsin.
Don, thanks for calling. Jim, you want to comment?
There's some excellent books out there on the waterfalls, and certainly this part of the state is wonderful. I think later we'll be talking to
Gervis Thompson, yeah.
Thompson, on Amnacan Falls and Madison, with the largest, tallest waterfalls in the state. And if you want to see waterfalls, this is the corner of the state, northwestern Wisconsin, to go to. One other thing I was thinking about when we're talking about canoeing or kayaking down the river, I guess for those people who have never been to interstate, and again, I encourage people to go there. If there's one or two or three parks you want to see, interstate's one of them. But the river goes through the dells of the St. Croix River. And what that means is that, a dells is just a French term, means like fast running water, like through a gorge or rock walled area. But these bluffs there are tremendous to see. They're 200 foot high. They're made out of volcanic basalt rock, very colorful rock. So that really is the thing to see there. It's just a beautiful view, no matter which side of the river you're on, I guess. And you don't have to canoe it. You can also get I believe the riverboat is still going now. There was last time. Maybe Matt can fill you in if the riverboat trips are going on yet.
Matthew, what about that?
No, it's generally they wrap up in end of October or so, just because not a lot of people like to be on the boat when it's overly cold. So, but they'll start up again in May. In May is when they start again.
Our guests today, Jim Buchholz and Matthew Densau. Matthew is the DNR property manager for Interstate State Parks, Straight Lake State Park, and Governor Knowles State Forest. And we've talked a lot about interstate, but we're going to turn our attention to the other two as well, and of course take your questions as we move along. You can join in. The number to call, 800-642-1234, or you could email us. The email address, talk@wpr.org. I'm Larry Mealer for WPR News. Talking about our Wisconsin State Park System today, is celebrating its 125th anniversary, and in honor of that, Jim Buchholz has written a dandy guide. It's titled Wisconsin State Parks, Forest and Recreation Areas, A Ranger's Guide. And I hope you have a chance to take a look at it and just keep it in your car. There's lots of great information about our state parks in that book. Matthew Densau is DNR property manager for Interstate State Park, Straight Lake State Park, and Governor Knowles State Forest. Again, you can join in 800-642-1234 or call us at 800-642-1234. Email to talk@wpr.org. A little later on, we'll be hearing from another guest who will be talking with us about some of the other parks in the area. Gervis Thompson will be visiting with us at around 11:45 today. Right now, Mary in Juneau has a comment. Let's go there. Hi, Mary.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for this. It's in response to the Interstate Park, and I know we're talking about a lot of things, but a bit of history is my grandfather was a dentist in the early established area of Taylor's Falls, and he was instrumental in getting that park set up. His name is Dr. Charles Truesdell from Taylor's Falls, a dentist, and he passed on stories of through my mother, who was born in 1910, of him relating to the Native Americans and how he saw that as a critical area to become saved or available to all people. So it became a park before it was called the Interstate. And my mother tells the stories of, as a young girl, she remembers all of the timbers coming down the river and how she was instructed to stay away from there. It was dangerous. So timbermen riding those logs down the St. Croix River Yeah. So just a bit of story.
Oh, great story, Mary. Jim Buckholz, comment.
Yeah, that's interesting. To this day, the St. Croix River at just north of the park area still has the distinction of having the world's largest log jam ever recorded. It took men, I forget how many men, it was like over 100 men. It took them 6 months to break it up. It was so jam-packed because there were so many shallow river falls in that area that they got caught in one after another. So it was amazing how large that was. Unusual record, but still stands today.
You know, I just wanted to mention in your book you have Ranger Notes or Ranger Trivia, and that was one of the little items that you have in your book about that area.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I try to find odd things you might see that are interesting in that area, and that certainly is one of them, that's for sure.
Mary, thanks a lot for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. Let's turn to Governor Knowles State Forest. Matthew, you also manage, it's the longest state forest in the state, I believe, Governor Knowles State Forest. It stretches, isn't it over 50 miles?
Yeah, approximately 55 miles or so.
And it's along the east band of the St. Croix River.
Correct. So it runs all the way from about Danbury up in Burnett County, all the way through Burnett County into northwestern Polk County.
Yeah. Jim, what's the difference between a state forest and a state park?
It used to be size-wise, and the idea of using it for commercial use for timber and so on. That changed over the years. Sometimes it was considered a state forest depending on what funding was available. That's how Point Beach State Forest became a forest instead of a park. And it's a heavily forested area, and I'm sure they do have forestry going on in that area. But anyway, that's how it started anyway.
And Matthew, the forest itself is co-managed by the DNR and the National Park Service as part of the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway. How does that joint management work day to day?
So with the Scenic Riverway, basically, the National Park Service owns approximately 400 feet of shoreline. So right from the shoreline in, and then it meets a lot of Governor Knowles State Forest along the road. That way, that's not an area where I'm necessarily in because I'm more recreation, but forestry does have a lot of interaction with the National Park Service about working on resource management in a cooperative way.
Yeah. Could you describe, in your mind, what are the highlights of the forest?
So I would say you have the Brant Pines Recreational Trail area. So that provides fantastic cross-country skiing opportunities when we have enough snow, which we got some this past week. So that's a good thing. But it also provides excellent hiking trails in that area. We also have a long linear trail system that goes a fair amount of the distance, the length of the forest for hiking. And along those, we have 9 backpack heights. Campsites for those individuals that are looking for that little bit out there of an adventure. Those are perfect opportunities for them. And then in the southern part of the forest, that's where we have our equestrian trail system. We have our equestrian campground down there. We have approximately 35 to 40 miles of equestrian trails, providing excellent opportunities for people who want to get to a different part of the state and ride one of their horses.
And the park obviously is named after Governor Warren Knowles. Jim, do you want to talk a little about Governor Warren Knowles?
It's kind of a funny one for me because, as you know, I worked for the State Parks and Forests for 40 years, but I almost lost my job the very first year I started because I argued with the then state bureau. It was called the Bureau of Parks director, Dave Weisbecker, and I've chuckled with him about that in the past, but just a new kid on the block, and I stood up and I was at a meeting, and I really was against it being called Governor Knowles because it was called before that St. Croix State Forest when it opened, and I thought that was so much better description and a nicer name, and I have no one thing against Governor Knowles, but I thought St. Croix was a better way to name the forest, and of course he did not agree with me.
Well, he was definitely outdoor enthusiast and an environmentalist, and probably why this forest and the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund bears his name as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, he was a really lifelong person and legislator and governor who really protected natural resources. And he was one that actually went out and enjoyed it, too. He loved going to this area fishing and the whole state, but especially northern Wisconsin and northwestern Wisconsin. So definitely that's why they called it Governor Knowles, I'm sure.
Yeah, Knowles, and the Knowles Nelson, of course, Gaylord Nelson, Senator Gaylord Nelson, another environmentalist. I guess that's why we have Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund bearing their names.
Right, and the bureau director pointed out that, well, we've got state parks named after both Republicans and Democrats. So there's Governor Nelson, Governor Dodge, and of course now we have other ones. Well, Governor Earl.
Oh, man.
It goes on. But anyway, it's a beautiful park. Very beautiful, especially along, if you like sand dune or sand cliff, sandstone cliffs. If you go there, Sand Rock Cliffs Trail, it's 5 miles long, but you don't have to take the whole thing. And it's beautiful bluffs right along the St. Croix River. And it's just excellent place to take photography or just to enjoy being all by yourself. It's not heavily used at all.
And it was designated as a national scenic trail or riverway. What does it mean for an area to be designated as such, national scenic?
Well, maybe Matt could fill you in on that more.
Sure. So basically, with that designation, it really signifies the quality of the waterway itself, whether it's for recreation or whether it's more kind of a wild and scenic river. So it's more on the wild side. With the St. Croix, it still has a fair amount of development, but you still get that high quality feeling of enjoying the scenery, having that recreation there. You have great water quality. The St. Croix River houses many, many, many endangered species of mussels, especially within the stretch right along interstate, and it's a high quality fishery. And the St. Croix River has many, many opportunities for people to recreate on the St. Croix and to enjoy what we have to offer on the water. Yeah,
and it was, as we were saying, 55 miles along the St. Croix River, so that's quite a stretch and opportunity for people. I want to turn our attention to the nearby, it's much smaller, Straight Lake State Park. And I think it's a different kind of park. I think it's about 2,000 acres, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew. But it's designated as a quiet area. Explain that.
Yeah. So Straight Lake is designed to be a property for individuals who want to go out and just reconnect with nature. It's not a property that has modern camping hookups for people with RVs. It's not a property that has motorized lakes. It's a property where you can go out, enjoy your time there, and just kind of reconnect with nature. It's specifically designed to be low use.
And in terms of boating and so forth?
So both of our lakes that we have Straight Lake and Rainbow Lake. They're both wild untouched lakes. So there's no development on either one of those, and they are both non-motorized. The access, you have to carry it in. So it provides that experience. Whether you want to carry in a kayak or a canoe, it's completely up to you. Rainbow Lake's going to be a lot smaller. It's about 8 acres in total, but that just gets stocked every year with brown trout. Otherwise, Straight Lake, it's about 120 acres. It gives you a very nice feel of being on that lake with nothing else going on, that you're out in the middle of nowhere and giving you that feeling.
Is that lake stocked as well?
Straight Lake is not stocked. It has panfish in there, northern and bass.
So still, I think when you're hauling your boat, your canoe in or your kayak in, there's probably some pretty good fishing.
Definitely, especially northern. There's a lot of stick northern that are in there, so you'll definitely get some action.
How do you manage? You've got these 3 parks. How do you split up your time among those parks?
Well, I'm not doing this alone. I have fantastic staff at all 3 of those properties that help me out. And then every single year we hire summertime staff. And that's what the system is going through right now, is our great hiring period for our summertime employees. It's a great way for people to get some experience in natural resources, customer service, and just see what the DNR has to do in general. And it's a lot of first step for a lot of people looking to explore that career.
What kind of background do you need to be involved in this? To get hired, let's put it that way.
The number one thing that I would say is just experience, willing to learn, and just Parks has a can-do attitude. We experience a lot of things that we have to deal with in a day. No 2 days are the exact same. So we're looking for problem solvers and people who say, I can do hard things and make it happen.
Yeah. And what about volunteers for those parks in that area?
Yeah, definitely. We have 2 friends groups. At Governor Knowles State Forest, we have the Equestrian Friends of Governor Knowles, and they help us out on our equestrian trail system. And then at Interstate, we have the Friends of Interstate and Straight Lake State Parks. They're actually one of the first friends groups to form. They actually formed in 1984, originally as the Interstate Interpretive Association. And their main goal at the beginning was to help out with interpretation and with the education program here at Interstate. However, as times have changed, they've added Straight Lake, and they've created a more expansive role in what they're willing to help us out with. This past year, they really fundraised to help with the rebuilding of a Horizon Rock Shelter that was a historic CCC building that burned down in 2021. They've helped us out with other projects, including the Pothole Trail, where we were able to do some regraveling and add a brand new Pothole Trail sign so everybody knows exactly where to go for that.
Yeah, there's a couple of things you brought up there that I want to spend a little bit more time on. Potholes, I thought that they're really cool to see. I can tell you that. I mean, from my own experience. But what are the potholes?
So glacial potholes are holes that formed in our basalt rock as a result of glacial meltwater. So going back many, 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 many years, there was glacial Lake Duluth up by Lake Superior, where it currently is. And with the meltwater that was occurring, it all burst down and formed the current St. Croix River channel. So when that water was flowing through, the basalt rock that's here at the park, it's had lots of cracks, so it split apart, helping to form the dowels. But also with all that water, you had whirlpools that formed. So you get debris that gets caught in it, from small little pebbles all the way up to very large hunks of rock called grinders that can be, let's imagine a bowling ball, that drill into the rock itself. So they drill down, and what you have are potholes, holes that get drilled into the rock. Our deepest one that we have here at Interstate is about 16, 17 feet or so. But our Pothole Trail has many of them for people to explore. Can't say that we have the deepest. That does belong on the Minnesota side, so I'll give a shout out to them for that. But we like to say we have the world's most perfect pothole on our side.
Well, they're really cool to see. I can tell you that for free. The other thing I wanted to bring up was you mentioned horse trails.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on there? People can bring their horses?
Yes. So at Governor Knowles, we have an equestrian campground. It has 39 sites that are available for reservation. And then we also have a day use area right there as well. And we have approximately 35 to 45 miles of equestrian trail. And I say that little range in there because we're kind of redoing our maps, so we want to make sure to give people an accurate number on that. And it goes through a whole bunch of different areas of the forest itself. I would say the Riverview Trail is the most popular, just because it takes you right along the Trade River. So you have fantastic views of the Trade River as it meanders through the forest there. And we also it has some interesting terrain in that area. We actually had this past winter some of the hillside kind of slough off, and that's just due to the terrain that we have there, where basically water can't flow all the way through, so then it goes out sideways halfway out the hill, and it makes this amazing step pattern on the hillside. So it's very neat to see that way.
Yeah, I would think so. So does it get a lot of use?
Most of the time it gets use more in the early parts of the year and the fall time of the year. Bugs and horses aren't necessarily the best thing that works together, especially with horse riders. So middle of summertime, we generally don't have as much then.
Yeah, that would definitely make sense. And are there trails for motorized anywhere in the parks that you manage?
No, not for motorized in a normal sense. Governor Knowles does have snowmobile trails that run through it, along with interstate. We do have a section that way. Most of our properties, since we're in northwestern Wisconsin, very rural, a lot of the townships allow ATV, UTV use on the roadways and things. And the Polk County has a system that kind of attracts a lot of the users that way, but not specifically on our properties.
Yeah. For you, and in your mind, you've got 3 parks here. What are the biggest challenges for you?
Challenges, I mean, like I kind of mentioned earlier, every day is a new day. You never know what's going to happen. Infrastructure is always a big thing, especially at interstate. We are the oldest state park property, which also means we also have a fair amount of old infrastructure as well. And then just, maintenance. There's always new things that come up, keeping up our level of customer service that we want to have for our visitors. Things change on a daily basis. Summertime hiring, it's very important, and the vast majority of the time we get great candidates, but it's also something that changes every year. But that's part of the joy of the job. It's finding solutions to this stuff and providing the best state park experience that we can offer.
Yeah. Jim Buckles, you kind of mentioned in passing, but other parks or areas that are close by the interstate, the Straight Lake, and the Governor Knowles State Forest, aside from Amnacan Falls and Madison and Brill River, which we'll be talking about, but what are some other things that people can see?
Well, really not that far. Just south of interstate is Willow River State Park. Again, very close to the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. So that is one of the heaviest used, I think, state parks by our Minnesota friends, because it's right on the border there. And then south of there is Canoecopia State Park, which is another park, kind of an unusual park in that there's no traditional camping there, but there's an area you can pull up with your boat and camp overnight in your boat. So very unusual thing there. And so those two in the south are really pretty close to interstate as well. Both definitely wonderful to see. Willow River has got some beautiful waterfall areas and its own lake, backed up lake, man-made lake, which is great. Just a wonderful beach there and just a great place to camp. I've been there many times and never been disappointed there.
Well, this has been a lot of fun talking with you, Matthew. It's been a pleasure. I know you got a big job there, but it's got to be kind of fun.
Definitely. It definitely is. Like, no 2 days are the same. It's a great experience. You work with great staff, and you're making memories for all the public that has a chance to come in. So it's a fantastic job.
And some people, are wondering, how did you what's your background, and how did you arrive at this position?
Sure. So I grew up down in southeastern Wisconsin, so I took a summertime position at the Northern Kettle Moraine. And that was when I was in college. And when I was at UW Stevens Point, I was dead set on being a conservation warden. And after that summer working at the Northern Kettle Moraine, I changed my mind and I decided that I was going to work in Parks and Rec. And from there, I worked my way up. I worked at Hartman Creek as an LTE park ranger. I worked at Willow River as as an FTE ranger operations. And then in 2012, I became the ranger for Straight Lake, and then the park manager for Interstate, and then the superintendent. So it's just keep on working and taking the steps.
Sounds like a great pathway. Oh, a listener emailed to ask, is there snow for snowshoeing this weekend, given the amount of snow available?
I would say yes, but it's going to start melting fast because next week we're supposed to get into the 40s up here. So enjoy it while it lasts. Get out from the cold and go out and enjoy things.
All right. Matthew, thank you so much for being with us today. I know Jim's going to stay with us, but thanks so much to you, and good luck in the coming year at your parks. Appreciate it very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Matthew Densau is the DNR property manager for Interstate State Park, Straight Lake State Park, and Governor Knowles State Forest. Coming up, Gervis Thompson, who's a property manager for another area, including Amnican Falls, Madison, and the Brule River State Forest, our guests. Coming up next, I'm Larry Mealer for WPR News. Thanks so much for joining us here on WPR News. Larry Mealer here. Just a note, tomorrow at this time, our book club gets back together, and we'll talk about the novel The Snowbirds. And the book's author joins us, Christina Clancy. So great to be able to talk with her about the book. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, you should tune in anyway, because you're going to learn some background about that book. It's a nice book. Then we'll be talking about the role of agriculture, specifically dairy farming, in the state's economy. Ben Miller and Mark Crave will be joining us for that in the second segment of our program tomorrow. Now with us, we have Jim Buchholz, a retired state park supervisor and author of the new book, Wisconsin State Parks, Forest and Recreation Areas, A Ranger's Guide. And joining him today now is Gervis Thompson. Gervis is DNR property manager for Amnican Falls State Park, Madison State Park, and the Brule River State Forest. Gervis, thanks for joining in.
Good morning, Larry. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, it's, I've enjoyed all of those properties, visiting all those properties. And if you look at Amnican Falls and Madison, both of those locations are known for their waterfalls. Talk about them.
Yeah, sure. So they're, I would say a destination location, and I was listening to Matthew and your first go around and people calling and wondering about waterfalls. We always get people on a waterfall tour, and it's nice to know that, this part of the state, I'm very lucky to be in a position where I oversee these properties that has the state's tallest waterfall, as well as several other waterfalls. So at Madison State Park, obviously a lot of people know we have the state's tallest waterfall, Big Manitou Falls, and also a smaller one, Little Manitou Falls. And Amnicon has a series of waterfalls, so there are a lot of people throughout the year that want to stop and visit and check out the falls.
Yeah, I've checked them out many a time. They're absolutely beautiful. And when you get a snow melt, you get some really impressive waterfall viewing.
You do, yes. And so not so much last winter, Larry, if you remember.
Yeah.
Did not have a lot of snowfall melt, but in the average winter, yes. Once late April into May, whenever we start to get that runoff, the waterfalls really start roaring, and that can go all the way into June. So it's a period where people like to come up and see the waterfalls really rush it.
Yeah. Well, so what do they look like at this time of the year?
Well, they're quite different, and
Yeah.
I get that question a lot from people that are visiting the parks, and I let them know, well, you're going to find solid ice basically from top to bottom, but still the water is running behind it. So sometimes there might be some holes in the ice where you can see the water or you can hear it running behind. But I tell people it's always nice to see these waterfalls at different stages of the seasons because it's something completely different.
It is indeed, and actually that ice, it's quite beautiful.
It is, and sometimes, depending on the day or maybe how the sunlight's affecting it, you can really get some awesome views of the falls at both properties.
Jim, let me turn to you for a minute. According to your book, Pattison Falls State Park was the result of a secret land deal.
It sure was. That's one of my favorite stories, I think, about any state park. But there was a guy, Martin Pattison, so you get an idea why it's named after him. But his name was Martin, and he moved to that area in 1879, and he made a lot of money. He did a lumber business there and iron ore mining, so he was a very wealthy guy. He built this mansion, which is in the nearby community, which is open to the public, I guess, even today. But anyway, he learned that they were going to build a hydroelectric dam on the Black River. The Black River is the river that goes through over two waterfalls and goes out. And he found out they were going to dam that, and it was going to ruin, basically ruin the beautiful scenery and the waterfalls there. So yeah, he secretly purchased 660 acres along the river, and I suppose everybody thought he was going to do some more logging, but instead he donated it to the state to develop a new state park back in 1920. I just think that's a great secret way of getting a state park, but we owe Pattison, and he definitely deserves to be named as part of the park name.
Well, I would certainly agree with that. Oh, man. Gervis, what can visitors see and learn at the Getchigumi Nature Center at Pattison State Park?
Sure. Well, the Gitchagumi Nature Center has got a little bit of the history of the park in it. There'll be some displays of the CCC camp that was there, Camp Pattison, back in the mid to late 1930s to early 1940. There is some wildlife exhibits in there, some geologic exhibits. It's not a big nature center, but people, especially during the summertime when the park is busy, they like stopping in there and just checking the nature center out.
Yeah. How I was trying to think of the length of the Big Manitou Falls. It's
165-foot waterfall.
165 foot.
Yes. So that's the tallest waterfall in Wisconsin and the fourth tallest east of the Rocky Mountains.
And someone had sent an email. Do people come to these parks to climb the frozen waterfalls?
Well, so at our property, we do not allow climbing on the rock face or the rock gorge or on the ice. I think there are probably some parks that might happen, but not at our properties. So for our properties, it's basically just viewing the waterfalls at Pattison, at Amnicon Falls, which are smaller waterfalls, the Amnicon River that flows through the park. In the summertime, people are welcome to swim in the river and the pools of the falls, and that's a pretty popular attraction.
Yeah, yeah. But 165 feet, that's a pretty good drop.
Yeah, it's well worth if anyone's up in this area, it is sure well worth a stop just to kind of stand back. And we have viewing platforms on both sides of the gorge there, so you can get up close to the falls, and then on the south side you got more of the top to bottom view of that big waterfall.
Yeah. I wish I had $1 for every photo that's been taken of Big Manitou Falls.
You'd be a rich man.
I know I would. I took many of them myself, so I know that would be the case. What's the geologic history of that area?
Well, and so there's a lot of geologic history with both Pattison and Amnicon Falls. So the falls were formed, and I'm not a geologist, but probably half a billion years ago or more, and they call it the Douglas Fault. So it's just along a fault line where you have some of the harder basalt rock and the sedimentary rock, and then those forces, hundreds of millions of years ago, thrust that basalt rock upward, and that's kind of what created the falls. You can really see that up close at Amnicon Falls, but the Douglas Fault runs right through both parks, and that's what formed the falls.
Yeah. And hiking trails. There are some nice, let's take Madison. There are some nice hiking trails there in Madison.
Yes, yep. We offer, there's probably close to 5 miles of hiking trails. We also have close to 5 miles of, hiking and then cross-country ski trails this time of the year. But people offer them if they want to hike between Big and Little Manitou Falls. There's a nice 3-mile round trip hike that people really seem to enjoy. So we certainly recommend that.
Yeah, I've taken that one a time or two. As a matter of fact, it's one of those where, depending on the time of the year, I kind of like to do it in the fall, to be honest.
Yeah, and we do. This park stays pretty busy even into October. So when you get the fall colors, and you're walking along the lake and the river between the falls, yes, it can be very beautiful. Absolutely.
You can join in too. Number to call 800-642-1234, or you could email us to talk@wpr.org. That's talk@wpr.org. Jim, what do you like about Amnicon Falls State Park?
Amnicon is, as you mentioned, being able to go, and these are very small waterfalls, most of them. There's one or two very large ones, but there's some smaller ones that are really great. Even if you have kids, I brought my kids there when they were little, and just to play in the little waterfalls and so on, and there's so many of them. And the upper falls go over large basalt rock, and the lower ones really go over sandstone rocks and real bright red sandstone in areas, and it's just a fun place to go. And it's not very deep, though the river is not deep in most places. There are some deeper pools at the bottom of some of the waterfalls, but for the most part they're shallow and just fun to go in the place in summertime, wade in there. It's just a great place to go. And there's not a lot of trails there, but they're short, but they're really neat to see. The best one I would say would be to go to the Waterfalls Trail, where you get a chance to see the different waterfalls, and the little bridges that go back and forth to see them, and especially one called the Snake Pit Falls. And that has to do with the fault that he mentioned about the fault and the crack in the earth. And you look down into the Snake Pit Falls. It's Snake Pit Falls, and I'm not sure why they call it that, but it's pretty neat. I mean, it's a roaring stretch straight down in this big gorge, and it's pretty neat to see.
It is. You call Amnicon Falls, or you describe it in your book as a one-of-a-kind natural water park.
Definitely. and definitely a place to go to get cool off on a hot summer day, but it's beautiful anytime you go there. I imagine now with the freezing up of the different waterfalls, it's got to be beautiful in winter too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple of guests for you today right now. Gervis Thompson is the DNR property manager for Amnicon Falls State Park, Madison State Park, and the Brule River State Forest. We're talking about them, and we'll be right up until 12:30 today, and you can join in too. The number to call, 800-642-1234, or you can email to talk@wpr.org. Take a quick look at the news, find out what else is in store for us here on WPR News, and then we'll be back with our guests. I'm Larry Mealer. Great to have you with us here on WPR News. Larry Mealer here. Northern Wisconsin's home to some spectacular state parks, and we're talking about some of them with our guest today. A couple of guests. Gervis Thompson is DNR property manager for Amnecan Falls State Park, for Paddison State Park, and the Brule River State Forest. And with us as well, back once again, Jim Buchholz, retired state park supervisor, and he's author of this great new book. It's titled Wisconsin State Parks, Forests, and Recreation Areas, A Ranger's Guide. So, which of those northern state parks or forests or recreation areas is your favorite? Why? Give us a call. The number's 800-642-1234, or you could send an email to talk@wpr.org. That's talk@wpr.org. Jeff in Berry Mills has something for us. Let's go there. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah, hi, Larry. I just had a memory of when I was in high school. It was probably around 1968. I went to a youth conservation camp in Minong, Wisconsin, on Lake Nancy, and we had a work detail.
Oh, somehow we lost it. Yeah, we lost it, Jeff. I'm sorry for that. Well, he had a work detail. Jim, are you familiar with anything along that line?
All I heard was Lake Nancy, and I'm afraid I don't know where that is.
Oh, he worked. He had as a young man back in the '60s. He was on a work detail. Were there special projects back in those days that you recall?
Oh yeah, sure, definitely. And we're in more recent times. My eldest son actually was on a youth conservation group that they used to run camps all over Wisconsin. The one nearby here was at the Kettle Moraine State Forest, and sure, it was a great experience, a summer experience for kids, usually high school kids, pre-college type, and they'd work on all different projects, different state parks, state natural areas, wildlife areas, all state properties, and some county ones as well. So it was a great program, definitely.
Here's one for you, Gervis. Elizabeth and Danbury called, but couldn't stay with us. Elizabeth says their family has camped at Amnecan State Park for Amnecan Falls State Park a few times, but Elizabeth wants to know, what's the deal with the train that blows its whistle in the middle of the night as it passes by?
Yeah, and I've heard that before. And so, who knew that train whistles and horns travel, the sound travels so well? But I have heard that from people camping in Amnecan Falls. My thought is, Solon Springs is probably 25 miles south, and I know that train goes through there a lot. So I'm not exactly sure how far away they are from hearing the train, but they're not having a nightmare. It is an actual train somewhere. So that's what they're hearing, yes.
Anne in Maple had wondered about birds and other wildlife that you would see at Paddison and Amnecan.
Sure, depending on the type of the year. In the springtime, summertime, I would say your typical songbirds that you're going to see, the chickadees and nuthatches, chipping sparrows. Different times of the year, I've seen rose-breasted grosbeaks and evening grosbeaks. Also, obviously, the more of the raptors. I mean, there will be bald eagles flying around up and down the Amnecan River. Occasional ospreys. And also some hawks as well. I'm not as an expert on the hawks, but I know the sharp-shin and some of the broad-winged hawks kind of hang around as well. So, and at Paddison, roughly the same. We get quite a few eagles, although sometimes of the year we have Inter Falls Lake, which is just above Big Manitou Falls. So we might get a pair of nesting loons occasionally. Sometimes we'll get some resident geese up here and some trumpeter swans that'll hang around for a while up at Paddison. So it's a mixture depending on what time of the year.
Yeah, and in terms of animals, might you see a bear or a deer or?
Well, you'll certainly see some deer. And what I tell people at both properties is that, we're kind of in their backyard. So black bear or timber wolves or coyotes or foxes, it's like they're around. But to be honest, I rarely get reports of people seeing them in the park. So
Yeah.
I think they kind of know to hopefully stay out.
There's bobcats in that area too, but you're not likely you're going to see a bobcat.
Yeah, they're pretty reclusive. So I think they're around, but yeah, the odds of seeing them are pretty slim.
Margie in Somerset, thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
Oh, I love your show, Larry. Thanks. I'm wondering if those state parks are going to be facing the same hiring freeze that the federal parks are currently feeling from our current president.
As we look ahead to this year, Gervas, excuse me, what are you seeing? Are they?
Yeah, I've heard nothing about that. So as far as I know, that's not going to affect us. It's still kind of status quo as far as hiring. And like your earlier guest, Larry, Matthew, kind of goes through some hiring. We'll hire some seasonal people throughout the year, and I do have a couple of full-time vacancies as well. So as far as I know, that's still ongoing and active.
You spent a long time in DNR fisheries. Did you talk about your winding up at Amnigan Falls?
Yeah, well, luckily I didn't have to move far. So, yeah, I was in fisheries for close to 25 years, and I've been in parks for about a little over 7 years now. So, fisheries was great. A bulk of my time was spent as a hatchery technician in Brule. So right on the Brule, close to the Brule River. I worked at a trout rearing station there for many, many years, and just decided kind of, halfway through my career just to make a change, and I was fortunate enough when I first got hired in parks was as a park ranger at Madison. So I've been able to kind of just stick around in the area, which I love, and I'm very happy to be here.
Well, as a fisheries guy, and here you are overseeing or managing the Brule River State Forest. That's got to be a good thing for you.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than that, Larry. Absolutely. It took me a while when I first moved up here in the late '90s, working in Brule. I didn't have a lot of river fishing experience, but once I had some friends, go out with me fishing on the river, just fell in love with it, and it's a beautiful river.
It is indeed. I love that river, and have fished it too. Describe the Brule River State Forest for us.
It's a wonderful property, Larry. Lots of history. It's about a 47,000 acre state forest. It contains the entire length of the famous Bois Brule River, 44-mile length. So that's obviously the number one attraction. It's called the River of Presidents, and it's very well known for providing great fisheries, also for recreation with canoeing and kayaking certain times of the year. From a management standpoint, we have a couple of campgrounds that are in the state forest. We have hiking trails. We have a lot of canoe landings, fishermen parking lots, a great trail system, after hours ski trail system just outside of Brule. So a lot of opportunities throughout the year for people to recreate in the forest.
Yeah. Somebody else was asking about fish. What do you fish for in the Brule?
Well, it's again the Brule, and a lot of people find this confusing when you tell them that the river flows north. But so the Brule River flows into Lake Superior, flows north. But we get runs of steelhead, runs of coho salmon, some Chinook salmon, and some runs of lake brown trout. There are also resident trout that spend their entire life in the river, brook brown and rainbow trout that you can fish for as well. But it's a trout and salmon fishery.
Yeah, I've done a little rainbow and brookie fishing there, and had some luck.
Yeah,
surprisingly enough. Oh man! So and how do people usually fish that river? Fly
Depending
fish?
on the depending on the time of the year. I mean, there are a lot of fly fishermen, and when the water's cold in the spring, once trout season opens up, a lot of them will be, throwing spawn bags or yarn flies and certain flies throughout the year. And then as the water kind of warms up, a lot of people will start fishing with spinning gear and throwing, some MEP spinners or some spoons. But it's and with all the fishermen parking lots that we have throughout the state forest, there's plenty of opportunity to try different sections of the river. Or if you have a canoe, you can float certain sections and fish from your canoe as well.
And if you're into hiking, I mean, there's mile after mile. Talk about the hiking system.
Sure. So again, in the Brule River State Forest, there's a couple of trails that the DNR management manages. The Stony Hill Trail is close to the Brule River Ranger Station. We have the old Bayfield Trail, which is just north of Brule off of Cleveland Road. And also there's a good portion of the North Country Trail that goes through the Brule River State Forest. So there's lots of hiking opportunities on the North Country Trail, as well as Paddison State Park. Part of the North Country Trail goes through Paddison as well. And then obviously if you're into recreating fat tire biking or cross-country skiing, the After Hours Trail system managed by the DNR is about close to 25 miles of groomed trails in the wintertime.
Yeah, that is absolutely great, and I think there's like 40 miles of hiking trails.
Yeah,
when it gets to be
a lot of walking trails in the state forests as well.
Absolutely. Bonnie emails. She's looking for information on this year's state park vehicle admission pass design contest. Anything on that? Wondering about the deadline, who can enter, and that sort of thing. Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm familiar, but I don't have any details on that as far as when the deadline is. I guess my suggestion would be.
Oh, we lost you there, Gervis. You're talking about somehow we lost Gervis there. So we'll see if we can get that fixed in just a minute. Maybe Jim can fill us in a bit.
Yeah, if you go onto the DNR system and just type in the Wisconsin State Park and Forest sticker design contest, it'll give you all the information that you need on that. And that started years ago. Give a chance for kids to come up with their own design. So this is for like grade school age children. And they come up with some really good designs, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. We've got the contest for the waterfall stamp and the pheasant stamp and all that. So it kind of is a knockoff of that, you might say. Only bring it into the lower grades and let them design it. So it's kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Gervis, I think we got you back here.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Not sure what happened there. What I miss?
Well, Jim filled in on the design contest, so that's good. Here's another email. Are trails at the Brule River State Forest groomed for cross-country skiing? And how are the ski trail conditions right now?
So, sure. For the first part of that question, yes, they are groomed for cross-country skiing. And again, that'll be the After Hours Trail System, which is just outside the town of Brule. And it's close to 25 miles of groomed trails. They're groomed for classic and skate skiing as well. And that trail system also has a snowshoe trail, fat tire, bike trail, and also new this year, we're just opening a section of a skijoring trail. At the After Hours Trail System. So that's something new. We're just trying, and we have one loop kind of that we're working on that's open right now, and we're hoping for future expansion of the skijoring trail as well.
Valerie emailed, do any of the state park hiking, skiing, or walking trails have lights?
Well, not at my properties, no. There's Superior Municipal Forest, and the city of Superior does have some lighted trails that are groomed for cross-country skiing as well. So if there's someone up here looking for a lighted loop, they can head to Superior to the municipal trail.
And Jeff in Madison couldn't stay with us. He wanted to point out that there are 2 Brule rivers in Wisconsin. The other one borders Michigan and empties into Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken, Gervis.
Yeah, that's right. And that's also kind of confused me over the years, because I believe there's also an Iron River, Michigan, that's close to the Brule River in Michigan. And, Iron River is very close to Brule, Wisconsin. So, but yeah, your caller's correct. I think the official name for our river is the Bois Brule River.
Yeah, that's the official name. And it is really something to see and experience. I mean, it's like you're in the middle of nowhere in some parts.
It is. It truly is. And I've canoed quite a few sections of it. There are still some sections that I have not canoed. But the times I've been on the river, it's just wonderful. It's all surrounded by state forest. There is some private ownership along the river, but it's always a good partnership with some of the river owners there. But if you ever get a chance, I highly recommend canoeing or kayaking sections of that river. It's really something.
Yeah. Jim, I want to turn to you for a minute. People should be reserving campsites now at our state parks if they want to stay at this summer. I think that's right.
Well, yeah, I get a lot of questions about this, and unfortunately, I get a lot of people say, I just can't get in. And it's very popular, of course. We've got 1.2 million people out there to compete with. That's how many people camp in state parks and forests. So, but I try to tell them, don't give up. That some people say give up. Well, don't. Keep trying. If you're able to take off during the midweek, that's a great time to go. Very few of the parks are totally filled up during the midweek. But one thing that a lot of people don't know about that I think I wanted to mention was it's called the Notify Me alert. So if you go on the Wisconsin Going to Camp, it's called wisconsingoingtocamp.com, and you can either go there directly or you can go to the state park and it'll give you an app to get to that place as well. But anyway, if the time or the date that you want to go or the site isn't available, you can put in your preferred location, dates, equipment, party size, and even recently now they added a filter so you can put in things like I want electric or don't want electric. And then the Notify Me button, which is kind of in the upper right-hand corner on that screen, you just press that and it will watch for those things. A lot of people make reservations. Most people know you can make reservations 11 months in advance. So because it's so far in advance, things come up. People get, weddings or, health problems or whatever. So there's lots of cancellations. And this system, Notify Me, will alert you to that you have a site that's available. So I really encourage people to use that system and keep trying to get in.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry in Prairie du Chien has something for us. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, got some great memories of the Brule River. I originally lived in Superior, but I've been on the Brule more now that I live some 300 miles away in Prairie du Chien. I've got some wonderful experiences fly fishing on Big Lake at dusk and into the dark, into the night. And on the what would be the west side of the river, it sounds like somebody's tossing bricks into the water. It's got to be huge brown trout. I've never seen them. I've never caught one from that side, but it sounds like somebody's literally lobbing bricks into the water. And that is like you got to. And then you're fishing in the dark, and the adrenaline starts to pump. Like maybe one of them is going to take your fly.
I know that sound. And Gervis, I bet you do as well.
I do, and I know what what Jerry's talking about. The big lake is certain times of the year, right? When the lake run browns are coming up the river. I know there's some of those diehard fishermen that like to get out there at night and, having trouble walking and seeing where you're going, and you're kind of casting into pitch black, but you kind of wait for that sound, so.
It's a good one, Jerry. Thanks a lot for calling. You brought back a good memory for me as well. Tom in Madison wonders, why are there so few non-reservable campsites in Wisconsin state parks? Most are now first come, first served, the non-reservable. Jim, do you have a comment on, or Gervis, do you have a comment?
Well, and I think some of that stems from, and maybe Jim can add, I think during our COVID, we used to have some first come, first served non-reservable sites, but the park system moved to just making all sites reservable. So now all campsites in all the state parks are now reservable. So we don't have any more first come, first served campsites.
Okay. Sue emailed to say Copper Falls is a state treasure. They've been there in every season, and it's great in every one of them. In the summertime, the adjoining Loon Lake offers a lovely beach as well. Lookout Tower in the main park and the old lodge brings the flavor of the past. Great trails, waterfalls, and camping. Jim, a comment?
Yeah, I just gave a program about 2 weeks ago, and after the program, a guy came up and wanted to know the best state park to go to take photographs, and Copper Falls came to mind right away. I think it's just an unbelievably beautiful place. It's definitely on that same list I talked about of the places you have to go and see, and that is one of them. Just a gorgeous. Another waterfall park, of course, and it's just one of our older parks, and it just improves as year by year goes by.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is a lovely place to visit. And here we are about out of time. I want to thank you both for being with us today. Jim, how's the book going? Are you selling a few copies?
Oh, one or two here and there.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of requests to go and speak, so luckily I had a little foresight that I put together a PowerPoint program because nobody wants to have me come and just look at me. So that's fun, and it's nice to hear all the comments from people and very positive. There aren't many people that have really complaints other than maybe it's too hard to get into camp maybe, but other than that, people sure love their state parks and forests.
They do indeed. And Jim, thank you so much for being with us today. We'll have you back here in another month, and we'll do this again. But Gervis, in the meantime, thank you so much for being with us and for the work you do. Much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Larry. It was a pleasure being on your show, and I just hope and encourage all your listeners to come out and visit your state parks and state forests this year.
Gervis Thompson, DNR Property Manager for Amnican Falls State Park, Madison State Park, and Brule River State Forest. Lots of water there. And speaking of water, we're talking about Canoecopia next. I'm Larry Mealer for WPR News. Well, it'll be a few weeks, I guess, before the ice melts and the streams are a bit more navigable again for kayaks and canoes. And maybe you're one of those folks who waits for spring. Canoecopia might be a place to visit while you're waiting. It's held in Madison, one of the largest paddle sports expos every year. And Darren Bush, the chief paddling evangelist and owner of Rutabaga Paddle Sports, hosts Canoecopia. And this year it's taking place March 7th through the 9th at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison. I've visited it many times, and it is a wonderful visit, and we'll talk about it with him. Maybe you canoe or kayak. Are you looking forward to paddling somewhere special this spring? Give us a call with your questions or comments at 800-642-1234 or send an email to talk@wpr.org. That's talk@wpr.org. Darren Bush, welcome back. Good to have you with us.
It's good to be here.
So, what year is this for Canoecopia? I can't remember.
It's kind of hard to say. Rutabaga turned 50 last year, and we didn't have them the first couple of years, but my guess is we're well into the 40s.
Yeah, and you've been involved
since 1990. My first Canoecopia, I worked in a leg cast because I had broken my my leg kayaking actually, and sat there putting stickers on dry bags, and then things happened, and and there we are. So.
Oh man! Well, for those who've never been, I mean, give us the broad strokes of what you're going to find when you go to Canoecopia.
I've got a good friend who told me once that if a voyageur from the 17th century came back in time, he would look at Canoecopia and go, oh, it's a rendezvous, right? So you think about what they did, they'd get together after all their work is done, and they'd get paid for their furs, and they would dance and drink most of what they made and have a big party, and then they'd go back to work again. So the thing about a rendezvous is it was part commerce, part rendezvous, part getting together with your friends, part community gathering, part educational. So it's all of those things. The thing that I'm most proud of is the educational component of it, because we really want people to know how to use their stuff.
Yeah, and that educational component is amazing. And I think as I think about Canoecopia, this guy who's been around for a long time and has some experience, I still find something new. But I think on the other end, somebody who's never done it, there's a lot for them. As well.
Yeah, we do our best to try and get people there who can speak to across the spectrum. There's what Hideo Suzuki said, in the mind of the beginner, there's many possibilities. In the mind of the expert, there are few. I think that's the quote, something like that. I consider myself a beginner with a lot of experience, because every time I go to one of these or every time I take a class, I learn something. And so there's people that will speak to getting started in. There's also people that are doing, there's a woman who's talking about circumnavigating Lake Superior solo. I mean, there's inspirational stuff, but there's just a lot to learn.
Yeah, there is. And it's kind of, I know in the past, you and I have talked about this, and you kind of call it a family reunion in a lot of ways for you.
It really is. I mean, I have 3,500 Facebook friends, and 2,500 or more are people that I know through Rutabaga. And for me, I get to, hug people and shake their hands and high five them, and I don't see them very often. And so for me, that's probably the best part about it. And every year I take a selfie before the doors open on Friday, hold my camera up and tell everybody to smile. And I have those going back years. And every time I look at one, it just makes me smile.
Somebody is wondering how the planning for the event was going, but the planning started a long time ago.
The planning starts the month after the last Canoecopia, or even earlier. So the floor plan, it's 100,000 square feet plus a lobby of another 30. So getting that all organized, I start with the floor plan from the previous year, the month after, and start locking in things that I know are going to happen, and doing most of the work ahead of the time as I can. My job at this point is pretty much done.
Yeah.
If I'm still worrying about stuff right now, it means I've failed. So the staff are really working hard right now. They're starting to get into their busyness. My busyness is in October, November.
Jim in Menominee emailed to ask if there will be inflatable boats on display and for sale at Canoecopia.
Yes to both. We've got several inflatable companies. NRS, Northwest River Supply, is one well-known. There's a Czech company called Gumatex that makes essentially it's a canoe But they're made in Czechoslovakia. You can't kill them, so people will take them on airplanes because flying a canoe to the Northwest Territories is kind of expensive. But they can throw a duffel on the back of a beaver and get dropped off in some remote river. So there's 4 or 5 people selling inflatables.
Oh, so and that just reminds me of the scope of the things that you are going to be able to find for sale or for talking to people about.
Yeah, it's an educational event with a sales component, right? So my philosophy has always been is the most boring thing in the world is a sale. It's like, hey, we're having a sale, big deal. We want to educate people on how to use equipment. I found that if you do that, people have loyalty to you and they want to support your business. So most of what we do, both at the shop and at Canoecopia, is to teach people where to go, how to use it, and also when to go and when not to go. So we're trying to have a safety component of it as well.
Yeah. Darren Bush, our guest today of Rutabaga Paddle Sports, he is the owner, and talking with him about Canoecopia. So we'll maybe you visited in the past. I hope you'll join in with comments about that. Or maybe you just have a question about kayaks or canoes or paddles. Certainly, Darren can talk with you about that. I don't know anybody that has more experience. Give us a call. The number is 800-642-1234, 1-800-642-1234. Or you could email us. The email address, talk@wpr.org. That's talk@wpr.org. Love to hear from you. I see Bear Paulson's going to be.
Oh, Bear. So, yes, Bear Paulson is amazing. He does a trip every year where he goes in the fall and comes out in the winter into the Boundary Waters and sets up a hot tent and stays there for 6 weeks. And the amazing thing is it has a 5-year-old, Dash, who's one of my favorite little people. And he takes him too, and he and his wife and his kid go in there, and he probably has more outdoor experience, both paddling and just winter camping, than anybody I know. And everybody that speaks at the show is intelligent and knows their subject, but they're all also really good people.
Yeah. And he is fun to listen to.
He is. And he's also, I don't know, I've stayed at his house a couple times when I go up to visit the factory at North Star. And they're just lovely people. Yeah. And life's too short to be around people that aren't like that. So, I mean, I've got 5 Canadians staying with me during the show. They're smaller vendors that, I can save a little bit of money on hotels. They can just crash in my basement. So, but it's a good thing for everybody. My community is so large and so loving. I feel blessed to be part of it.
Joe in Chippewa Falls has something. Let's go there. Hi, Joe.
Hey, good afternoon. First off, I have to say, from Chippewa Falls area, I did call down to the Rutabaga store at one point, and we were able to get some really good knowledge about upgrading to a kayak for my wife and I. That really, really definitely helped.
Great.
But my main thing is, in Chippewa Falls at the Glenlock Lake, they have a new dock system in, and they have, I'm sure you know of them, where they have rollers for handicapped and disabled people that go up and down on their launching. Because my wife, with their disability, is extremely helpful. I was wondering if there's any more available that are coming up around the state, or...
Always. There's always things going up. I'm on the governor's board of tourism and work with the Office of Outdoor Recreation, and there's a gentleman in Milwaukee who's paraplegic and kayaks a lot, and he's putting in something on one of the beaches there that you can roll down in a chair on the sand, which is pretty cool. The great, what's it called? Bill Bertram's thing, the Great Northern Pinery Riverway up by Chippewa. I think it's on the Wisconsin and the Chippewa River, but I look into that because he's putting in access points, and I believe that many of them are handicap accessible. There's actually a guy coming to the show who makes them, and he wanted to come and just show people what's possible. So if you already have a dock, you can throw one of those on there. But I love them. I think they're great because you're right. It's all about accessibility. Because once you're in a kayak, if you have mobility issues, lower body mobility issues, you're basically equal with everybody else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, thank you very much for calling. Ashley in Sauk City, we'll go to you. Hi, Ashley.
Good afternoon. How are you guys?
Great. Appreciate the call.
Yes, thanks for taking it. I just am really excited about the event, and I'm wondering if you can give a little insight as to any extras that will be offered. You know, I know you have speakers typically, and I know there's demos going on. Obviously, lots of sales as well. But is there anything else going on that you would like to speak to us about that, get us more excited about coming down?
If I can make you more excited, that would be great. I mean, there's 150 presentations, so you're bound to find something there you love. But a couple things. One is Jerry Vandiver. Jerry is a award-winning singer-songwriter from Nashville who has platinum records. He's written for Tim McGraw and some other of the big names. But he comes and he does a thing called canoe songs. So he sings about paddling and that he loves the boundary waters. But also Saturday night at the Holiday Inn Express across the street, there's like a jam. And there's there's songwriters from Madison that go and just hang out and play. It's all acoustic. You can go and just sit there and listen, but he's a wonderful man. The fiddle player he's bringing this year toured with Shakira and Taylor Swift, so they're not hacks.
So, well, that's something to get you going, Ashley. Although you sound pretty upbeat about it already. Thanks a lot for calling. Appreciate your call. Let's go to Bob in Lake Mills. Bob, hi.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to thank Mr. Bush for putting on Canoecopia. I've gone for many years, bought a canoe there 25 years ago, still use it. My wife and I have paddled all around the state for years, and I just wanted to ask him if he would agree and wondered why it would be that the rise of the kayak, with the exception of the canoe livery business, it seems to me I see many more kayaks on the rivers and lakes and streams than I see canoes anymore, and I wondered why that was.
That's a wonderful question that could be an entire show. Kayaks kind of started coming on the scene in the early 90s, and the recreational kayak, which is what you normally see out there, early 90s, mid 90s really boomed. The thing about a recreational kayak, a little 12-footer or whatever, the big cockpit, anybody can get in it and make it go straight without any training at all, right? So the learning curve is really quick. Canoes require a little bit more finesse and a little bit more skill. That said, our canoe sales are very, very healthy. And part of the reason is that I love canoes and I can sell whatever I want. So we sell canoes. Specifically, I sell a lot of solo canoes. I think sometimes people get a kayak when they really should be getting a solo canoe. And the reasoning is this. If you paddled the Sugar River or the Turtle, what else is over there? The Bark, all those little rivers. If you come around the corner and there's a tree across it and you've got a 3-foot muddy bank and you need to get out, getting out of a kayak is tricky. Getting out of a canoe, you just kind of stand up and jump out and grab the bow, So for around here, canoes are great. There's also a thing called a pack canoe, which we're doing a lot of now. It's basically a small canoe. You sit in the bottom and you paddle it with a double-bladed kayak. So it's basically a double-bladed paddle. So basically it's a kayak without a top on it. Those are really easy to get in and out of. They're really easy to transport. They weigh less because there's no deck, right? So kayaks are still popular, but we're pushing it. And part of it is, you make your own weather system, right? We're trying to push canoe because we think it's sometimes a better tool.
Yeah. Bob, there you go. Thank you so much for calling. Appreciate your call. You can join in too. Number to call 800-642-1234, or you could email to talk@wpr.org. I'm Larry Mealer for WPR News. Having some fun today talking with Darren Bush, Chief Paddling Evangelist and owner of Rutabaga Paddle Sports. which hosts the big paddle sports expo Canoecopia. This year it's taking place March 7th through the 9th at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison. Lots to see and do there. And if you have questions or comments about the Canoecopia or just about kayaks and canoes, hope you'll join in at 800-642-1234 or email to talk@wpr.org. And an email, will any of the Canoecopia speakers give advice on what to do if you capsize your canoe or your kayak?
They might talk about it a little bit. There's a couple that will for sure. However, learning how to rescue yourself in a canoe or kayak, you can't really learn that in a book or from a talk. You have to actually get out there and do it. We're actually starting a new event this fall in September at Camp Manitowish called Camp Rutabaga. And basically, it's camp for grown-ups. So we're going to do canoes, kayaks, the whole across the board. And the reason we wanted to do this is we found a lot of people are kind of siloed. It's like, oh, I'm a kayaker, oh, I'm a canoeist. It's like, you guys, we should be getting together and talking about this because there's things to learn from each other. And I had a lot of people say, I've always wanted to try a kayak, but I'm a canoe person. It's like, well, here's your chance, right? So we'll have classes on self-rescue and rescuing others and, all that stuff you need to know to be safe. The most important thing to be safe is know when not to go. Most of the accidents that happen with kayaking, in fact, most of the national statistics, most of the deaths, they happen in March, April. And it's people that go out when it's 80 degrees, but the water's still 40. And they get in trouble. So we're trying to educate people as well. Yeah. And when is that? How do people, if somebody wanted to sign up, could you still sign up? Everyonepaddles.com. Is where you can sign up. We have an open registration. That's next week, but it's going to be the 12th through 14th, I think, of September. Yeah. Okay. There we go. TJ in Madison has a question. Let's go there. Hi, TJ.
Hey there. How you doing?
Good. Appreciate the call. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm curious about these. I've seen these sort of online ads for these foldable canoes or foldable kayaks. They're sort of like an origami, I don't know, made of fiberglass or plastic or something. I was wondering if the Rutabaga folks had any experience with those, or if they, are they reliable? Are they durable? That kind of thing.
So they're made out of a corrugated plastic, kind of like cardboard, and and the description is apt. It's like an origami, and it folds open and turns into a kayak. I'm kind of ambivalent about them. I think if you live in an apartment and you need something that can fold up and stick in your closet, they're fine. I would never paddle farther from shore than I'm willing to swim in them because I just don't know, right? And they haven't been around long enough. And they do destructive testing and they do stuff. And the companies, they're good people. I talk to them sometimes. But I'm still kind of a fan of inflatables just because they're just a little bit more predictable. And TJ, if you visit Canoecopia, you're going to get to see inflatables and kind of the whole range. Yeah, and inflatables are not what you think they are. 10, even 20 years ago, 10 years ago, they were kind of like a beach toy. The new ones are constructed in such a manner that they are incredibly durable and stiff. They actually paddle really, really well. Another email. Could you talk about the aluminum chef competition that takes place at Canoecopia? Okay. Everyone knows what Iron Chef is, right? And most people do, right? Where they have this thing on TV where they have to cook and they get judged, usually harshly, right? Someone's yelling at them. Aluminum Chef we did the same thing, except it's all with camp gear. So they get a camp stove and, they have to come up with something. So we put a pantry up there, and they have to make an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. And there's always a secret ingredient, just like in Iron Chef. A couple years ago, it was walleye. I haven't decided yet what it's going to be, but it's just a hoot. So we have Luke Zom from the Driftless Cafe is one of the chefs. He's the legit one. And then we have a camp cook from Missouri. He's an old park ranger who's also a fantastic cook. And then Mona Gauthier is a dehydrated food expert. She does her own dehydration, and she does it. And she just quietly over in the corner, just doing her thing and crushing it. And then we have judges from the audience that get to vote on which one's best, and then someone wins. It's so fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, and a lot of fun to watch too. Well, all of the shenanigans that go on during it. This will be the last Canoecopia, I guess. It's an email for renowned author and speaker Cliff Jacobson.
Yes.
What has Cliff contributed to the sport and event over the years?
It's hard to overstate what Cliff has done for canoeing. This is, I found some Canoecopia show guides back when they were 8 pages and, hand drawn from like the mid 80s, late 80s, and Cliff was speaking then. Cliff approached us this year and said, you know what, I'm getting too old for this. I'm going to retire. So we've given him a couple spots. The last one is on Sunday, and it's a swan song. It's a 2-hour presentation where he's just going to go through his whole life. He's a remarkable man. He's very kind and very willing to share information. We go head to head sometimes on some of the techniques that he recommends, but how you deal with bears is there's a lot of different opinions on it, and we don't share them sometimes. But at the end of the day, we high five and hug, and everybody's happy. But he is an amazing man. He's tripped all over the world and has a wealth of knowledge.
And give us an idea of some of the other speakers who will be presenting, just so people kind of know what to expect.
Well, I'm holding here a spreadsheet.
Yeah, which is a very large spreadsheet.
Right. So yeah, there's 13 time blocks times 8 rooms plus 2 more on Saturday. There's kind of 3 things. One is the how-tos, and that's like Cliff's camping secrets and how to paddle the boundary waters and how to do this and how to get started. There's how to choose a boat. There's how to find what's right for you, and that's kind of the informational stuff. And then there's sort of the inspirational stuff, which is the people who like circumnavigate Lake Superior, or they paddled some of these Yukon rivers, and they do slideshows. And there's a woman talking about paddling with caribou in the boreal forests. There's a guy talking about how to film your own adventure as a filmmaker and photographers, and how to do a good job photographing in the outdoors. There's talks just for women paddling in the outdoors. Jillian Fitzgerald is doing one that I think is wonderful. David Johnson's doing one about archaeology in Lake Superior. The folks that found the canoes in Lake Mendota, the ones that are like 3,000 years old, coming from the State Historical Society, I think, talking about the history of canoeing in Wisconsin goes back to prehistoric times. So there's something for everybody.
Yeah. And there's a place people can go if they don't have your magazine.
Yeah, if they go to Canoecopia.com or rutabaga.com, click on the Canoecopia button, there's a list of all the speakers and what they're talking about in their bios. So,
and how much does it cost to attend?
I don't remember.
It's not a lot.
It's I think it's $17 for one day and $35 for the weekend.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's kind of expensive. It's like, how much it costs to go to one movie, right? It's $12 to go to a movie, and this is 150 times that. There's so much information, and plus, stuff's on sale, but whatever, that's fine. But yeah, mostly it's just about come and learn,
And I always have had fun. You always have fun.
Well, when you get that many people with that much positive energy together, it really is. In California, you would say, yeah, you get the stoke. But for me, it's just like I'm a high functioning introvert, but I float around for 3 days just soaking it in, and I just love it. And there's people that I'll see a couple times a year, and sometimes only once a year. And
at
Canoecopia. And and it's always nice when people buy things, because that's how we pay for I just paid the last installment for the Alliant Energy Center Expo Hall, and it's a large number.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's always a pleasure to have you come in, Dare, and I appreciate it very much. And by way of full disclosure, Rutabaga Paddle Sports is one of WPR's many business sponsors, and we certainly appreciate that as well. go online, take a look at the Canoecopia, or just go to Rutabaga Paddle Sports, and you're going to find all the information there. Great to have him with us. Thanks to Lee Rayburn and Jeff Robbins, our technical directors, our executive producer, Jill Nadeau, and our producers, Clara Neipert and Joel Patnod. I'm Larry Mealer.